Our next step is taking the motor, recognize this beast, and we will mount it onto the adjustable base. There's 4 mounting holes here on the base, 2 here, 2 here, and those will match up with the 4 slots that we used previously to mount this to the bed plate, actually through a riser. So I'll line those up, looking down to see if I can see the hole. And for here we mount hardware. Unlike what the text tells you to do, which was 1-inch bolts, the 1-inch bolts will be too short to go all the way through this mounting plate, the base plate, plus the flat washers, plus the lock washer, plus the nut. So I recommend using 1.5-inch bolts, not 1 inch, but 1.5-inch bolts, 5/16. Now I'll go ahead and put a flat washer on, and I will gather in my hands more of the flat washer, lock washer, and nut. And I'll put my bolt and flat washer combination up from underneath. Now I put the bolt through partially. I keep my finger underneath, and now at this point I'll put on the flat washer, lock washer, and nut. One of the things I've done here is that I'm actually not pushing the bolt all the way through as tight as it can be. It makes it very close to the motor mount. So I actually drop it down. If they can catch it in picture here. Notice how I drop the head level down, and I put a nut on it. I finger tighten, and continue on. At that point, now I have it mounted, and I will mount this finger tight, not any tighter than that. In fact, I could even back off, I'd say, about a thread, and there'll be a reason for that later for soft footing, and also just for ease of handling. Now, I'll do the same thing for the bolt on this side and stop there. So I do these 2 bolts away from the hinge, at the hinge side actually, because once I do these 2, it's easier to get to underneath. To get to these back 2, I'll actually raise the motor, because it'll be a lot easier to get to it from the back here. So I'll go ahead and drop the same sort of hardware and back here, and then we'll go ahead and move the motor. And now I'm ready to mount these 2 back bolts. In order to do that, there's 2 back nuts here. One underneath to keep this base from lowering down, one on the top to keep this from rising above it. The lower one's down. This top one I raise as much as I can. Then I will gently raise this motor up, take this nut underneath, spin it up to hold in place, quite a bit of spinning. That's good. Now it's a whole lot easier to access from here to put the bolts underneath for hardware. So now I'll proceed to finish the job with the last 2 bolts, of course, through here, the flat, lock, nut, almost finger tight, not quite, probably about a thread back off. You can see the studs are sticking up. Easiest way to deal with them. And I'll do the same thing with the back here. And once we do that, we'll be ready for the next step, which will be the soft footing. So you can see with the motor mount up here, next point is soft footing, which you do just like you would with the motor mounted to the base plate or risers. Again, it's a matter of pick up the appropriate feeler gauge leaf and attempt to push it underneath any of the 4 mounting spots. If it cannot go, then your soft foot's taken care of. Once your soft foot's taken care of, you're ready to start considering the next part of the job, which is going to be mount the pillow bearings blocks just like you did before with the shaft. Instead of the shaft running straight out here, it'll run off to your left side, my right side. But for right now, I'll go ahead and leave the motor like it is. And the next step we will do is level the motor.